Hello, hello. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. We are here for episode 138. Sorry, we did not bring you a show last week. I was otherwise preoccupied with some quarterly planning meetings, and we weren't able to fit it into the schedule. But I'm happy that we're back. Today is Wednesday, September 30th. It is just a little bit after 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If anyone is paying attention to any media on the globe, you probably are aware last night we had a super interesting, some might call it comical political debate. We'll touch on that a little bit with my guest. And let me go ahead and jump over here to Facebook. Let me just make sure that we are, in fact, streaming. So bear with me. Let's see here. There we go. It does look like we're coming in live. So I think the tech is cooperating. If you're out there watching or listening, don't forget to type into the comment section. Let me know where you're coming to us from. And as always, I appreciate you tuning in. And let's go ahead and look here. So our guest today for show 138, our guest is the one and only Murray Kunis. He is president at Future Home. They're in, I don't know if it's Los Angeles or Beverly Hills, but he's down there in Southern California. So let's go ahead and we'll have him clarify that for us. Let me bring him in without any further ado. So stand by. Murray, how are you, sir?
Very well. How are things on the East Coast?
You're so reserved. You were so animated when we were talking before we went live, and
Well,
I'm
I
like,
don't
"What?
want
Did you just
to.
take a
I
chill
don't want to.
pill?"
I don't want to shock people right off
Yeah.
the bat. You
Okay,
kind
we're
of have
gonna
to lure them in. You kind of lure them in, and then you hit them.
lure them in and then get. All right. So tell our audience, where are you coming to us from? It looks like maybe you're in your office.
I'm in my office. Where I'm in Los Angeles. I'm right outside of Culver City, right next, a few blocks away from MGM Studios, where actually one of my clients is the chairman of MGM Studios. Where Gone with the Wind was filmed just down the street, and we are about 10 minutes south of downtown Beverly Hills. You mentioned Beverly Hills, so we are very close, and the majority of our clients are in what some people refer to as the Platinum Triangle, which is Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Brentwood, and some in Malibu. So that's about 80% of our work. The other 20% of our work is national and international. We have active clients right now in Texas, Nevada, Montana, a few other places. It's wild. We have 4 active projects in Texas, totally unrelated to each other, total fluke. We don't market to Texas, but it just happened.
Do your clients
And
bring
so,
you when they say own properties in different states or countries? Are they bringing you
right.
with them? Is that how that's working?
Well, I mean, usually they'll send a representative to interview us here in LA. And if we, get past that hurdle, then yeah, then we fly to wherever they are and meet with them on site. It just depends. We have one client in Texas, the house is in Montana, the architecture in Salt Lake City, and we're in LA, which of course makes perfect sense.
It's
So,
well, everything's on Zoom anyway these days, so that sounds
well,
like
yeah,
that's
well,
just
this
the
was,
hip thing to
yeah,
do.
yeah, it actually, Zoom has certainly made things a little easier, and we can react faster and have more immediate face to face than before. But before all this, jumping on a plane really was pretty easy. And of
Are
course,
you jumping on, just out of curiosity, are you jumping on planes now, or is it all being done
I
virtual?
have been to 4 different cities since March. When I first flew in April, it was interesting. I was the only person in first class, and there were like 12 people in coach. So my wife was all worried, and I said, "Are you kidding? The airports are sparkling clean. There's 6,000 people in them now versus 150,000, and there's no kids with runny noses. The airports have never been safer."
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, the The thing, at least over here in Florida, that I'm seeing nonstop, if I happen to flip on the news, which I admittedly talk about often, that I try not to do these days because of all the chaos. But what I do hear about are the fires out there in California. And are you guys okay? Is it affecting? I don't know exactly where they're at. I know you can Google and find fire maps of California, but it sounds like it's bad. Is it bad where you are?
Right. Well, it's not by where we are. We're in Southern California. You have to remember, California is a very large state. California, if it was its own country, it would be the fifth largest economy in the world. Um, so, so yeah, in terms of immediate effect, no, it doesn't affect us. Although there have been a few nights where the sky was orange, literally, and you could smell the smoke, you could taste it in the air. But in terms of, thank goodness, we live in a concrete jungle anyway, and the valley of Los Angeles, the famous valley, was a desert before, so that's not as much of an issue there. So there have been one or two fires east of Los Angeles, so in the Great Basin, but way on the east side. But the fires that most people are talking about are in middle and northern California.
Middle and Northern California. Okay.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
got some people stopping in here, Murray, to say hello. So let's give a few of them a shout. Let's see here. See if I can see them. No message hidden from stream.
They're probably going, it took 138 to get to me. You ran out of people worthy to talk to you. It's like really having to scrape the bottom of the barrel now.
We were scraping the bottom of the barrel here, Murray. I appreciate you're willing to participate, considering you were
it was either that
down on the totem pole.
Right. It was either that or I'm sorry for interrupting you. I guess I'm in this interruption mode. We really need to have a third person here. I can constantly interrupt to
all right. So you're calling out the elephant in the room, and that obviously was the comedy. I mean, presidential debate last night. And this is not a political show, and we're not going to be political, but I think we all have opinions. And so do you have any take? I mean, we have a global audience. People are listening to this around the world in many different countries. And maybe some of them think less of us because of certain political parties or certain people in different positions in our government. So what's your observation of what happened?
I thought it was very sad. But you got to see the current president of the United States totally unhinged, totally out of control. I would only assume that his strategy was beat on the opponent, keep beating on him, and hope he would crack. That he would either join him in the gutter, or he would lose his focus and he'd start rambling, so that he could say, "Oh, you see, the other guy isn't worthy." But you saw that the opponent just stood there steadfast, talked to the camera, talked to the American people, and didn't crack. So yeah, it just seemed to me that his obvious approach was to just beat on the guy and hope he would succumb, and that didn't happen. I would, because there were no interruptions, I don't think he ever got a chance to think wait, my strategy's not working, maybe I should try something else. So it's unfortunate. The only good thing I can say without belittling confidences is, as Ron, my clientele is the top of the food chain.
So let's put that into perspective. You and we're going to dig into it quite a bit here. You primarily serve the state level customer, people that have large residences, large net worth.
Right.
And you have a perspective politically as to where they're leaning. And you were telling me before we went live, this is actually pretty shocking to me, your perspective with your sphere of influence.
Right. So, I'm very blessed to serve a market of people in prominent positions of financial power, say one other way to say it. And it's about 90% pro Biden, and if you want to just be so blunt about it.
But why is that? Because people would theorize, people with money want to protect their net worth, and I'm going to say theoretically, one could surmise that you need to be pro-Trump to do that. Is that?
Well, I mean, if you look at the history of the United States, especially last 50 years, the economy always did better under a Democratic president than on a Republican one. The Republican platform of, let's lower the taxes and give everybody money doesn't work, so, and all we've done is, dig ourselves in deeper and deeper debt. Um, and the Wall Street likes stability, which is not what you're getting here. This is why right now Wall Street, the financial institutions, are giving 5 times, not 5%, but 5 times more money to the Biden campaign than they are to Trump. So no, they understand that you need somebody stable, somebody that, this great deal maker has, the only deal he made was to make about a 5% adjustment to NAFTA. That's it. All he's done is break out of deals. He has not made one deal during the course of the 4-year presidency. So you can't operate a business, whether national or international, in such a climate, and where he's breaking arrangements and relationships with long established allies. The irony is that, and I'll just say this and we'll move on, is that one of his big talking points during the election is people are laughing at us. They're laughing at us. We're laughing at the world's laughing at us. The only time I've ever seen the world laugh at an American president is at him, and it's twice, and at the UN and at the G7. So the only time that people have laughed at America is the president of the United States. The people globally have to understand that it's only about 30% of the population that really supports him. It's very fervent. I actually wrote a paper in college saying not to go down the middle. It's better to attract a base that's as good a vote versus, and my professor thought I was wrong. It took 40 years to prove me right.
Trump's proving it. He's got a fervent base.
Fervent base that they will vote.
They will vote for him.
Whatever, and all I say is, if you are, wherever your leaning is, vote. I would rather see a 90% turnout and Trump win than a 50% turnout and the election is contested. Right. And all I can say is to people that support him, please continue to go to the rallies indoors. Don't wear masks. It's safe. Go right ahead. Get as close to each other as possible. The president doesn't do it. You don't need to do it. So there you go.
The virus isn't real. In fact, hug the person next to you.
Bring your friends. I think that's really the way to go, because that's what he says. I mean,
we're just restating what he says for sure.
The only other thing I was going to say was the only thing that's let me sleep at night is, again, I mean, the people that I talk to on a regular basis, including people that do literally report directly to the president of the United States, is they said, had Trump tried to do something dramatic, and we'll leave it at that, he would be very surprised by the response. It's like, no, even though he's president of the United States, the people that would be the ones to execute, something ridiculous, would keep his finger off the button, so to speak. Because he doesn't actually press the button. He tells other people to press the button. That's how it works. The president of the United States isn't pressing the button and missiles go off. All he does.
There's not a big red button on his desk.
There's it is. It brings him more Diet Cokes.
Is that or Big Macs?
Or Big Macs. But he is the healthiest president in the history of the United States.
Yes. Oh, and the smartest.
And the smartest. Yes.
Yes. My son is 11, and my son will randomly start quoting. What was that test? It was like piano, telephone, woman, man, tree, cat.
It's strictly a test for early dementia. And, it's a very simple test. It's meant to be simple. God bless him. I mean, I forget about how many books have already been written. Like the people that I yet to see somebody leave the administration and write a pro-Trump book. But all I'm going to say is, what's going to be fascinating is the thousands of books that we've written about this period in American history, on either side. The next 20 years, it's going to be a fascinating study in American politics and in the American psyche. So good, bad, or indifferent, wherever you lean, whichever, and the thing is, of course, he's done some very interesting things that are important to a lot of people. The courts, of course, will be his big legacy. And just for those that heard him say Obama left him 148 judges to fill, how could you do that? Well, you could do that because the Republican Senate refused to confirm any of his nominations. So there were 148 seats because he kept sending them to the Senate, and the Senate kept saying, we're going on a lunch break. So that's why there were 148 empty seats. It was very simple. It wasn't that Obama wasn't nominating. He was nominating every day, and they just kept saying, when Obama came into power, the senators literally said on record, we will do everything we can to block everything he does. I mean, they said that. So Anyway.
Yeah,
So
no,
I think a proper
go vote. If everyone's listening, and if you're in America, and if you're allowed to vote, if you're legally, whatever you vote, left, right, center, independent, I don't care. Just get out and vote at One Firefly. By the way, Murray, you might appreciate this. We're actually calling voting day a company holiday, and we're giving a half day off, and everyone can go out and vote on the company.
Well, I grew up in Chicago where Mayor Daley once said, remember to vote early and vote often.
Vote early and vote
often. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're not condoning any illegal voting practices.
No, and
here.
so far, the only people who have voted illegally were Republicans. So, by the way, they voted by mail, and they showed up, and they were, of course, turned away.
They were,
but yeah, I mean, it's just, I hate. I'll just say this because this I think is really important. Someone has to just sit back for a second and draw a breath and think, wait a minute, the president of the United States is saying that our most sacred institution, voting, has been rigged, and he's degrading and throwing doubt in the most important thing and what makes America America. And if that's not a Putin talking point over everything else, so you put everything else aside, that's got to be it. I mean, that's, and 10 years ago, I was reading articles about how the Soviets were doing this in Europe. I mean, this is not new. This is not something.
This is out of a playbook.
Yeah.
A fascist playbook.
This is not something that was made up, all because they don't like Trump. But here you have the President of the United States degrading the presidential vote. And I don't know everything else. I mean, the white supremacy thing, the virus thing and all that, put all that aside. But if you have the president of the United States, so when they just simply say, will you listen to the election? And he won't. And will you support people? And he doesn't. I think everything else falls apart. And I think that's why
I whether you lean left or right, I hear the Republican. I have a lot of friends that are Republicans. I have a lot of customers, a lot of family members that are Republicans.
Of course.
And when I hear them support Trump when he talks about his unwillingness to leave office, and I just run through the thought experiment. What if Obama had said at this point he would not leave office
after 2 terms?
And what if he said
still popular?
Still popular. And what if he said, no, I'm not going to leave office. I'm going to stay in. How, just on that point of his statement and how undemocratic that is, to say that he would not leave, I can just imagine Fox News and how up in arms they would be.
Melted. They would have melted.
They would have had a meltdown.
But the only way to know these things is to have a really premier audio video system in your house.
You clearly need a very large, expensive, impressive home theater to watch these.
At least 120-inch TV in, I have one client, every TV in the house is a 75-inch, including the kids' rooms, and that's the right way to go.
All right. So we're going to switch gears. How did you get into this audio video integration business? What's your backstory? I know that you were in the music business.
Right. Okay.
We're going in the way back machine here, Murray. We're going way, way back.
We're going back when things were written down back then. They were chiseled on tablets.
That's
so
right.
we got to I got the tablet here, and I tell you. So not going back too far, I graduated from the University of Miami Music Engineering program, which still is the top program in the United States for professional music recording facilities, that approach. Of course, when I went there in 1982, everybody wanted to produce the next Steely Dan album. I mean, that was pretty much the vibe of the program. The program had about 24 to 25 students a year admitted. They were getting over 1,000 applications. The $20 I slipped the dean, I guess, helped. And so I got in. The head of the program at the time was actually the gentleman who engineered the Elvis Presley albums, back in the 50s, and actually had 8 of the top 10 albums were records he had engineered. So the program was very prestigious and very well known. And now there are other recording engineering programs in the United States. So when I graduated, actually the spring before I graduated, when I flew out to LA, I was in school in Miami. And I had a listing of all the major recording studios in LA and went for job interviews. at that point, 99.9% would say, well, I helped my buddy with the studio in his garage, and I used to carry the guitars to the Roxy, or I worked in this little 8-track studio, and here I am walking in going, I have a university degree in engineering and music. So it didn't make it very easy for me to get a job. And I'm very blessed, especially in the early 80s when there was so much drugs flying around, is I wound up in a studio that was very clean in terms of the staff, the musicians, other conversation. But it was a family-run studio, and probably, or if not, one of the top 10 studios in the history of rock and roll. It was the studio where the Doors were done, and Van Halen and Janis Joplin. And so here I am. I literally walk out of college, day one. I get this job before I even moved to LA. I'm in LA on Thursday, and on a Monday, I'm in the studio, and a week later, I'm working with George Harrison, and Toto and Van Halen. And
what was the name of the studio?
It's called Sunset Sound. They are one of the last studios still in business. And it was just amazing. I worked with Prince, and Purple Rain in 1999. We Are the World. We were one of the studios involved with that. So I was very lucky. So I got to know these people, as friends as well as clients. And I did that for about 6-7 years on staff. And it was an amazing time. It's an amazing time for music. And so people started coming to me going, hey, I can't get my VCR to turn on my TV. It's the very beginnings of it being beyond a TV with a clicker and channel 3. So I started going to the homes of very prominent musicians and music executives, as a side thing, and doing their houses.
You were their tech guy.
I was their tech guy. And at the same time, then I started working for a company that built and designed some of the major studios around the world. And these studios are very complex with miles of wire. And so to do the house to me was cake. It was easy. So after about a 1.5 year transition, I found that I was exclusively working in homes. And interestingly enough, I saw the handwriting on the wall that the big $1 million studios were going to become a dinosaur. That there would be a lot of options for people to record music very well in a less high-end environment. And I think we're seeing that played out now in our industry 40 years later, that yes, there's a time and a place for the big multi-million-dollar recording studio, but for the average musician, for the average guy, obviously you could see that people are doing, records that get 500 million hits and they recorded it in their basement. You couldn't have done that 40 years ago. So
by the way, Murray, Amanda Wildman posted a question, and she says, who is your favorite artist to work with? I guess while you were at the studio.
I would have to say I was very blessed. I worked with David Foster to Julio Iglesias to Van Halen. I'll say Van Halen was very surprising. In the studio, these guys were consummate professionals. It was not, got the work done, focused. That's why they're this major band. But in terms of the artist that I most admired, by far was Prince. We had to build a custom room for him in the studio because he would sing, play the drums while operating the recording equipment at the same time. So we had to have a remote console control next to the drums. So he literally was a true auteur. He did everything himself. And the tragedy of what happened to him was, that was because of an injury. At the time in the 80s, when there was so much coke in the air that you'd walk into recording rooms and you'd just see white dust in the air, in his studio, there was just this huge stack of Perrier bottles. That was it. So it was a real tragedy, what happened to him, because that was not, I don't want people to think of him, of how he died. But no, he was an amazing artist and an incredible ping pong player.
Did you play ping pong with him?
Not only would he beat everybody, but he would play ping pong in 5-inch heels. And when he hit the ball, he would spin around in the time it took to get to you and come back, and he'd spin around and he was able to hit the ball back to you again. So, he
was practicing his dance moves while he was playing with you.
Dance moves. He was truly amazing. But no, I got to have lunch with George Martin, produced all the Beatles albums. I was very, very blessed to wind up in the right place at the right time. And that studio's still around. Anyway, so segued to homes, and and then I had one client who we did his house for, and he was very impressed. Especially as 91. The fact that the speakers weren't sitting on the middle of the living room floor and one remote controlled his TV and his VCR, is that he literally picked up the phone and called Bruce Springsteen and said, "I'm sending this guy over to your house. Do whatever he says." And then he hung up the phone and he picked up the phone and he called Arnold Schwarzenegger and says, "I'm sending this guy to your house. Do whatever he says." And that gentleman likes to claim that he invented me, and he did. That was Jimmy Iovine. And
so he was sending you out to his friends from Hollywood, from
right.
TV, movies, and music.
Right. Yeah. So no, we did Trent Reznor's place in New Orleans because of Jimmy. We did a lot of work, and it really, it spiraled from there. And one of the questions you asked me was, how did we wind up doing the first home THX system in the United States? Well, because of my professional music industry context, I knew about the THX system prior to someone who had been in the consumer business for 30 years because of my crossover into the professional industry. So
for those that are listening, they've heard the name THX. What was the year approximately, plus or minus a few years? When did that come into reality, and what was it?
I want to say 92. I mean, I've got the article here published somewhere because they published the story because we put the very first home THX system in Alan Thicke's house. And so it was published.
Alan Thicke from the TV show.
Right, Growing Pains.
Yeah.
And actually, I think he made more money. He wrote a lot of theme song music for a lot of TV shows, both talk shows and sitcoms. So I think he probably made more money from that than the TV shows.
So how did you get looped in with the people that made THX? And how did you become the first guy?
I knew people I crossed over from my professional industry contacts. I knew people from the professional film side. And one of the studios that I worked at was a dubbing stage. Where we did back in the days when you'd hire a full orchestra, a scoring stage, when you'd hire a full orchestra to do the music for a movie. And I worked there for a year. So I was talking to people in the professional or theatrical movie sound industry. And they said, yeah, they're going to come out with a home version, yada, yada, yada. So, I got the buzz on that and got to meet the people from Lucasfilm, before there was a formal announcement to the general public.
Was it a big deal when that theater was done, installed? I mean, was there a lot of press and hubbub about it?
Well, I mean, there was some press. I mean, like I said, it was published in Audio Video Interiors, which was a magazine that featured quality interiors, now blending technology. Again, this is the early 90s. And it was the first time people had really cared about that versus just having a stack of stereos sitting on a shelf. So yeah, it got some, of course you didn't have the internet and you didn't have, podcasts and all that. So it didn't get the splash, but THX did. And what THX did back then was establish standards for the first time. It is not now, the market has moved on, but THX was the foundation of where we are today by saying, hey, all these different companies, they're all over the place. And if you hook up brand A's preamp to brand B's amplifier, there's a mismatch. One's operating at 2 volts, one's operating at 0.5 volts. There are no standards, and if you put volume at 0 on one amplifier, it's a different level than another amplifier, so it established standards for the residential entertainment industry, which is really crucial. And I think because of that, things were allowed to then take off.
I see here, and I'm cheating because I'm looking over at my notes here that my team prepares for me before I do any of these, that you were one of the founding companies of CEDIA, or in that time frame. And
right.
So just like what you're describing to me and the type of stuff you were already doing back in the 90s, how many other companies were doing that type of stuff in the I'd say in North America or around the world?
Right.
Was this
well,
still a very small club at that point?
Yes. At that point it was still a small club, and there was only about 30 of us that met. And what was happening is we were all operating in our own little worlds, and we're all inventing boxes because there weren't manufacturers like there are today that, made things that we needed to do. So, and what would happen was I would go to Sony and I would say, Sony, I really need an amplifier that does X, and you can charge $500 more. And they would say, how many can you sell? And I say, well, maybe like 10 a year. Somebody's going to say like, thank you, click. So I mean, one of the things that CEDIA did was like, look, there are 40 of us that each one of us can do 10 boxes a year, and you can charge more than you're charging in the residential market, and you have direct access to us. You don't have to like spend $1 million on TV ads. Just send us a letter and we'll sell your product. I've got it buried somewhere. It was a Time magazine article, again, around 91, 92. And it talked about how this guy had spent $25,000 on his home theater. And the people from Sony were aghast. Like, they could not believe that people were spending $25,000 on home entertainment. They just couldn't conceive of that, because their whole thing was like, we need to get the $99 unit down to $89. How do we save 10 bucks? So the club got together, we found each other and said, hey, there is this market of people that want quality, that are not so price dependent, and we need solutions to make things better for people's lives. And that's how, CEDIA got formed and got started. And what was interesting is, as CEDIA now gets 20, 30,000 people showing up at the conventions, for the first 7 or 8 years, everybody was in suits. It was kind of a club.
No way. CEDIA was a suit event?
Suit and tie. I mean, we used to, like, every year, Frank White and I and a couple other guys, like, who had the nicest ties competition. So while it was still a club, while it was just the elites, it was so. But obviously, CEDIA has mutated, which has caused a lot of conversation in CEDIA, because now it has hit the mass market, and there's a lot of conversation like, is this the right approach? Is this the wrong approach? I get it, but CEDIA now has become a mass market.
Yeah, there's a full spectrum. They're appealing to not just the high end, but
right, which is fine.
Breadth of reach of custom technology.
But then it lost credibility as a vetting organization, because for the first 10 years, if you were a CEDIA member, it meant something when you went to go meet with, a prospective prospect. Now it doesn't, in and of itself, that has much less impact. Certainly in a market like a major market like LA, New York, Miami, Chicago. So about 2 years ago, a bunch of the major manufacturers got together and said, hey, our market's getting flooded with people all over the spectrum. We need to find a way that homeowners or contractors are able to identify who the established companies with solid reputations and a solid history are, right? How do you differentiate that? And so the HTA, the Home Technology Association, was created, and it's product agnostic or atheist, depending on your political leanings. So you've got people from Crestron, Savant, Control 4, all the major manufacturers represented. So it's not a matter of go to HTA so the guy will sell you box X. It's go to HTA, these are the best restaurants, okay? And it's a very thorough vetting process. And it's a 60-point questionnaire. It typically takes 3 to 4 months to get vetted. You cannot join, you can apply. 2 of the largest companies in LA that have done very large projects were denied, because it's more than just, oh, you're a big company doing big projects. It's, it's a matter of what's your reputation, what's your ethics, how do you operate? Do you have 24/7 service? What credentials do you have?
What status does your business have, Murray, with HTA? I know there's different classifications you can have. In other words, you can be classification A and not classification B.
Well, initially they didn't know how to classify me, but that's another conversation.
That's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole different animal. So no, there are 3 levels. The middle level is called luxury. I forget what the basic level is. And basic is not a bad. I'll get to that in a second. And I hate to use the word top level, is called estate. And what they did is like, look, we're going to say who the best companies are, in the country, but not everybody does the same work. You could be the best tract home builder, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You could knock out 1,000 homes in 6 months, and they're great, and you can do it on budget and all that.
Well,
But then
and you could get that track home project and fail miserably because your
right, well,
business isn't set up to excel at
right,
that type
but
of
yeah,
work.
you get a custom guy, and the $200,000 house costs him $400,000 to build because he doesn't have the right vendors, he doesn't know how to do it, he doesn't know how to schedule that, whereas the guy building the $35 million house requires a different sensibilities to interact with that client and what they're looking for and what their goals are, and where their compromises or lack of compromises are. So what they did is they broke it up by typical budget of your projects. So I believe our category is $250,000 and up is your typical. Our budgets typically run about 400 to 800,000 is a typical budget. But so then it's like, look, if somebody's looking to spend $40,000, here's company X. That's their wheelhouse. That's their bread and butter. They're going to do a good job. Their business model and expenses are appropriate for that. I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, my budget's 40 grand, but I hear you're, a wonderful human being." And I said, we can do that. But there's going to be our labor and administrative costs are going to be more, but it's like hiring a Ferrari mechanic to tune up your Honda, right? It's still going to be it might be the best Honda ever, but it's still a Honda. And the difference between a Honda and a Honda tuned by the Ferrari mechanic, how much difference is there really going to be? And I've said that to people. It's like, it's up to you. If you want to hire us, yes, it will be the best Honda ever. If that's your goal, if that's your budget, if that's your, but I said, I don't think, and I say this all the time, I don't think we're the right fit for what you're looking for, so that's how HTA divided up.
So
You got to find
let me ask you
some
this.
differentiation. And that's how they did it.
For people that are listening that have considered HTA I'm going to call it from a marketing strategy. Have you
Right.
leveraged your HTA membership to help you secure business? And if so, how has that worked? Or have you found that it makes a difference to the consumer or the design team? Or do you help them see that it should make a difference? Like how are you positioning that?
Right. Well, still realize that in the market that we play in, which is a very small sandbox, personal referrals and are still the most powerful. We, bid on a house that was about a $45 million house, and they wound up hiring a guy that had done a 3,000 square foot house for his neighbor. And it's like, but my neighbor said he was great. I trust my neighbor, right? Okay. That's going to happen. HTA, what's starting to get some traction is contractors and architects are beginning to put in their spec, vendor must be HTA certified. And the great thing about that, if there's any contractors or architects or designers listening, is that avoids is the whole my guy versus your guy conversation. So I've got contractors that say, look, we'll work with anybody you want as long as they're HTA certified. So it's not, oh, I've got the greatest AV guy, but the AV guy that did your last house, you want to use him because, he did a great job on your 2,500 square foot condo before you hit the lottery, So that's been the leverage in terms of how it gets leveraged is that it avoids in a market where it's a lot of personal referral, it avoids that my guy versus your guy mentality.
It's interesting. And just to, call it out, it's hard. And I know we have some CEDIA board members here watching and commenting, but it's hard for the CEDIA membership or credential to carry that weight. And if anyone disagrees, put it in the comments, please.
Yeah.
Because it's not by invitation, or it's if you're willing to pay the dues, and then you're a member,
right?
And right, so there's
no vetting.
A filter.
Yeah, there's
no vetting.
Well, I can say and I say this not as a braggadocio, but as a statement of fact, as one of the most honored companies in CEDIA's history, and is the only company to have won the Best of Show twice, and even won awards that we didn't submit for, and we still won the awards. I can tell you that has minimal traction when talking to a homeowner or a designer or architect. It's unfortunate I wish industry recognition was more, carried more weight. But trade association awards, I mean, there are companies that have hundreds of awards, but 98% of them are sales, you know. So I think, I mean, I've met with contractors and I started to go down that road, and they just stopped me halfway sentences. I don't want to hear about any awards.
By the way, we have controversy. Eddie is commenting. He says there is definite vetting. Eddie Shapiro.
That's true. You have to have a business license, and you have to be breathing. So there are.
I see a fight getting picked here.
Millions of people.
We can't have an interview with Murray without a little controversy. So, Eddie, let him have it. Throw it in the comments, and I'll read it out loud here. I'm the neutral guy in the middle here, so don't pick on me. And then Nathan Holmes, Nathan, he's Access Networks, used to work
Nathan's
for you.
at Access Networks, and I mean, that was one of the things that we'll bring up to clients, because now Wi-Fi and network have finally really reached on people's radars. And we were one of the, if I don't say the first, but like literally one of the first 2 or 3 companies in the entire Southern California market that took enterprise grade networks seriously. This is going back, 12, 15 years. So, we would get, here's a bid, $45,000 for an enterprise grade network. And the other bid was $4,000, but they were using the switches you buy, at Best Buy, and but my clients have finally realized the importance of a carrier grade or enterprise grade network, not only in terms of reliability, but the reality is, of course, my clients are targets. I mean, my clients are the people, if you want to go hack the Sizzler manager down the street to get his credit cards, fine. But, when, my average client's net worth is probably about $700 million. I think you'd rather have his credit card, and read his emails to the President of the United States. One of our clients, his company modem was the size of a microwave oven, literally, because of all the encryption. But yeah, networks. One of the things that I've been saying the last couple of years is where our industry is going is we're becoming IT companies that also install speakers. IT has really become.
Can't imagine, Murray, you're running into a customer where you put an enterprise grade network. Let's say it's a $500,000 proposal and you have a $50K worth of network here and there.
Right.
I can't imagine you have a customer that goes, yes, I want all this stuff, but that network, nope, cut that out. I don't want a robust network.
Yeah, no, that's 5-10 years ago. Yes.
10 years ago, you'd get that, but not today.
No, not today. In fact, that's one of the first things. I mean, people ask, it's interesting. The 3 biggest questions I get. One is, can I reach you after 5 o'clock? Will you be there for me when I have, the Prime Minister of Ireland at my house for dinner on Saturday night and watch a movie and I can't get the movie to start? The second thing is Wi-Fi. How
they want robust Wi-Fi every square inch of the property.
We use, non-cloud-based company, operations that we use, management that's in the house. It's not going out to the cloud. I yet to have a client. No, I have one client. That is using a voice-controlled system in their house. None of my other clients have any Alexa or anything that's voice-controlled that goes off to the internet. Literally one. And the third question is, do you remember what the third question is? So
well, I'm going to interrupt you, Murray, because we got a comment from Amanda. And all right, wait a second here. Ron, I got Eddie. He's giving me a comment. He says, Ron, can you mention to all the CEDIA board of directors voting is happening now, and that there was a CEDIA podcast that dropped on Monday where all of the candidates speak and discuss their position and reason for running for CEDIA. So if you're out there listening, definitely check that out. And then I'm also going to say Amanda, she's also on the board. She says there is a member of excellence program now with CEDIA.
Yes, I'm familiar with that. It's a start. I mean, granted,
she says that there should be a focus on standards and certifications that you'd get from CEDIA. So definitely not hating on CEDIA. Love CEDIA. I've been a member of CEDIA since 2007 when I started my company.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a CEDIA 1 certified designer. I took the exams and as soon as that was available, and yeah, no,
Look at us, Murray.
absolutely.
We're getting in trouble here. I knew it was going to happen if you and I went live on air. I was like, it's only a matter of time before we
Well, I
dig
mean,
ourselves into a hole.
we if you'd rather, we can sit here and talk about who makes the best Blu-ray player. You know, I'm game for that.
Well, no, but I am going to jump topics here because I saw in the comments a little bit ago, Ted asked a question and he asked you about, I'm trying to find it here. He said something it was kind of a nice softball pitch. He says, there it is. You've done a lot of interesting projects. What project are you most proud of?
Ooh,
Yeah. What can you talk to us about?
Well, I mean, you got to actually put things in context. I mean, this is our 31st year. I started when I was 12, obviously. So, there were projects 15 years ago that at the time were really amazing. Dual stack CRT projectors, we did, before Escient could come out, we did some of the very early touchscreen controls to control a music library, so, but one always, in our industry, you're only as good as your last service call, if you know that expression. So we just recently finished a private theater. It's 2,000 square feet.
The theater or the house?
The theater. Include the whole
big.
show, including the booth. There's a full booth, the audience area, and the wall behind the screen wall is about another 4 or 5 feet. So the whole show we had to work with about 2,000 square feet. The audience area is around 1,400 square feet. There's 48 recliners, 48 Fortress full-size recliners. The screen is 11 feet tall by 26 feet wide. There are 41 speakers and 72 channels of amplification, and it's a commercial Barco DCI projector. So the person, if he wants to watch, a James Bond movie opening weekend, he can get the drive from the studio, and watch the movie opening weekend. That room, as great as we figured the room would be, having done a lot of, high-end screening rooms in a lot of very well-known people's homes that, again, budget was not a consideration. The room was spectacular. We were just stunned by having that kind of space, and the room just was beyond anything I've experienced in a commercial theater. It was a true theatrical experience. It's a Dolby Atmos room, but it's a professional Dolby Atmos room, which requires at least 30 speakers. It's a different standard. In fact, there are standards that don't exist for consumer. And Dolby, the room turned out so great that Dolby has asked us to make it a case study for how to do a DCI Atmos room properly. So we're very proud of that room, which we can't photograph because of COVID. So we're sitting on this $3 million theater that we can't show anybody. But trust me, it's there, right? Okay, right? Trust me. It's, did I say $3 million? It's a $35 million room. And I did it in a week.
Yeah, and you did it in a week.
I did
in
a
fact,
week.
it was done before you thought about it.
It was, there you go. It's, but yeah, no, that room was really, it's, when we do theaters, and I turn down probably 1 out of 3 theaters that comes to us, is that my approach of a home theater is not a room with chairs and a big screen. Our approach it has to be an experience. There has to be a theatrical experience in the room. If it's just a comfortable room with a big screen, that's just a bigger TV.
All right, we got some people dropping vendor and product names here, Murray. So I'm gonna rapid fire a couple at you. Mario, of course, is saying how many D-Box are in that theater.
Yeah,
are we hurting
Mario.
Feelings here, Murray?
Sadly, none.
None.
A D-Box is a wonderful product in a particular application. I'll leave it at that. But
then Jason asks
Mario's a great guy. They make a great product. I'll leave it to other people to decide if it's right for them or not.
Jason is actually with One Firefly, but he was formerly with the Stewart rep. And so he's saying Stewart Films tied to that Barco?
Yes, it's a all right. Well, I try to be agnostic about brands. You notice I really haven't talked about brands, but that particular room is Barco Professional. with home theater, pro audio technology speakers, and a Stewart screen. And all three of them, totally unintentionally on my part, are all represented by the same manufacturer's rep. So basically, he's naming his next two children after me, because that room was just a dream for him.
Is that Joaquin?
Yeah, it's Joaquin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a Stewart screen had a list price of $77,000.
Wow.
And it wasn't even a director's choice. The masking only came from the sides. There's no top and bottom.
No top and bottom. All right. Amanda's asking a great question. And she says,
Sure.
What's one thing you've learned through the School of Hard Knocks about owning an AV business that others can learn from so that you can help them perhaps avoid that pitfall?
Great question. Now see, leave it to a woman to ask a substantial, important question.
That's it. I think you just trashed me, ladies and gentlemen, with every other question. But that question, Amanda, 10 points. That was good stuff.
Yeah, but let's get her. We want to hire
her. She's hired.
All right, there you go. And the $10 I gave her to ask that question is.
Yeah, let me read, because you probably forgotten the question.
I've not forgotten the question.
You didn't forget it? Okay, go ahead.
TV, woman, chair. I'm sorry. Yeah, anyway.
TV, woman, chair, cat, computer. What was the psychology test?
I don't know. So, yes. I think that in our industry, it depends on your marketplace. But I can tell you that if you're dealing with an affluent marketplace, and it doesn't have to be the people we speak with, but even, say the doctor, lawyer, small business owner, making 6 figures a year, that has a nice house, wants a nice, media room and all that, is first and foremost, don't think with your own wallet. Think about what it is that you're providing in the service and what the value is to that homeowner, right? And put it in perspective. And if you're dealing with a market where the guy says, my budget's $25,000, and from your own experience, to do what he needs is going to cost $30,000. I'm just using this as an example. You don't have to make a $30,000 sale. You have to make a $5,000 sale, right? You just got to convince him. I hate to use the word convince because that's where the word con comes from. You just have to explain to him where the value is and that extra $5,000, right? So don't focus on 30, focus on 5. Okay. It's much easier to understand, and then they get it, So I would say that's a major thing. Also, one of the things I learned early on in the custom residential, not to be confused with lasers.
For those that are listening on podcast, he is putting air quotes in the air as he says custom residential.
Yeah, right. Austin Powers, which was produced by one of my favorite clients, was see, now you guys see he interrupted me. Chris, he interrupted
I knew you were gonna forget.
No,
but go ahead. Come on, you can do it. Amanda's rooting you on. She said she was loving your answer until you forgot what you were gonna say.
So we were talking about don't think with your own wallet.
Michael Restrepo is restating for you. He says, don't sell, create value.
Create value. And remember the third question. I'm
watching Murray squirm. This is unusual. Usually Murray has all the answers.
And no, I mean, focus on what service you're going to provide, because you're really in the service business. Stay away from talking about brands and models. Just don't even.
Customers don't care, do they?
Customers don't care about that, right? There's 40 guys selling Sony, right? I don't even talk about brands. I just had a client, as we're doing this, we're putting our budget for a theater is about $280,000, and we're underway, and it'll be finished in about 3 weeks. And he just emailed me and said, what's the model of the projector? It's a $100,000 projector. And he didn't even know the model number. And he wants to do it so he can refer it to a buddy of his. So he wants me to refer him a model number of something that he's buying that he doesn't even know what it is, right? So he doesn't care. It's like, what does this product do? What is it you're providing? Okay, that's what's important. I mean, if you go into a fine restaurant, and they're serving you a veal parmigiana, They're not sitting there and telling you what spices they put in it. They talk about, this is the experience you're going to have eating this meal. Okay. So stay away from things that are not under your control. Stay away from things that don't differentiate you from others in the marketplace. Every company has something that makes them unique, good or bad, right? You could have a company that you're available 24/7, or you could have a company of like, well, I'm a highly trained musician, I know good sound, or we sell more product than anybody else in our marketplace. We can get it for less money. We've got a deal. So everybody's got something that's unique to them. So emphasize that and stay away from talking about boxes, right? Clients don't care about boxes. And I'll tell you something, the clients that do care about boxes are what we refer to as hobbyists, and we don't take them on as clients because you're never going to satisfy them. There's always going to be a new box coming out, and they're going to second guess everything you do, right? So one of the things that we've had to train our techs is don't talk to the clients, right? Why? We go in and we say, the best solution is 4 speakers for this room. Okay. We put in 4 speakers. Clients there starts talking on our techs, and the tech goes, yeah, Mr. Smith's house, we put in 6 speakers, right? So now the client comes back to me and says, well, how come Mr. Smith has 6 speakers? And I got to backtrack and spend a half an hour explaining why he's different than Mr. Smith, right? So don't let your techs talk to the clients because, there's 3 ways of doing something. There's my way, there's somebody else's way, and then there's wrong. Okay. So, you want to keep a single message to your homeowners, right? So make sure there's only a single voice talking to them. And it only helps because if you've got techs in the field like we do, they can only get themselves into trouble. I mean, it's a lose-lose situation. So they've been trained, hey, what do you think of the speaker over here? You really need to ask Murray. Yeah, but what do you think about this speaker over here? Murray's really the one, or talk to Paul, or one of our senior managers, And then what happens is after the 5th time, they just stop asking the tech stuff. You train your clients, so and it keeps the techs out of the loop. It allows them to focus on what they're doing. You don't get mixed messages like certain administrations, so I would say those are some of the key things where you can get yourself into trouble. But focus on what's good about you. Deliver, don't think with your own wallet. We lost $1 million client because they needed about 50 grand worth of stuff to fix. And I'm thinking, oh my God, should we really fix that? It's $50,000. They eventually fired us. This is about 15 years ago, and spent like $1.5 million with the next guy in the next 6 months. Focus on what's different about you. Know that when you have to make a sale, you're only making a difference between what their budget is and what they need to spend, right? And stay away from boxes.
Lots of great comments here. We have, by the way, Amanda is saying thank you. She loves it. Great advice. Nathan, of course, states, I think we're going to put this as your, on all of our web pages for Automation Unplugged. We put your picture, we put a quote. I think I'm going to use this one. He says, don't sell the spice, sell the meal.
Oh, I remember the 3rd thing.
Yeah. What do you got?
Okay. So
you did it, Murray. It came back to you.
And the 3rd thing was television. No. So in case you can't see this, Ron is now laughing hysterically at my incredibly witty approach.
Incredibly witty.
Incredibly witty. So, 9 out of 16 people revolve around the sun. I don't know how many people get that joke. So we had a client come to us and say, here's the theater, again, estate property, but it doesn't matter, put it all in perspective, and said, my budget for my home theater is $155,000. What do you suggest? For the gear, only the gear. And I said, I suggest you buy a pool table. I said, it's not going to be good enough. I said, you're going to go down to a room in the basement with no windows, sealed off, right? It's got to be an experience. Trust me, I've seen this 100 times when I've gone to other homes. 6 months after the honeymoon period is over, you're just going to watch the 75-inch TV in the breakfast room where the food is. I mean, that's what people do. You have to have an experience. That theater in the corner of your basement or your property, where you have to walk down the hallway to get to, better be special. And the analogy I came up with on the spot, and I haven't thought of a better one yet. If somebody does, please send it to me. Yeah, Murray is full of no.
No, I Mark Kunis. Is this your brother?
Oh my God, the third thing is plastics. Yes, yes.
Third thing is plastics. Those
Okay,
aren't
again, you've got to be at least 50 to get that joke.
Yeah, that you got to be
So-
50. That's the graduate. At least I know that one.
25-year-olds, you can Google that and know why he's talking about that. So I said, imagine I put 3 Lexuses in your garage, right? Like your 3 TVs around the house. And imagine down the street, block away, I parked a Mercedes, right? There's the $150,000 theater. Are you going to walk a block to go drive the Mercedes? Yeah, maybe once in a while. But if I put a Bugatti in that garage, you'd walk there in a snowstorm. Well, probably not a great deal with the Bugatti. You'd walk there in the rain, okay? So you've got to have something that pulls you to use that room. So when you're talking to somebody who wants to do a home theater, not a media room, which is a completely different animal, just because it has a big TV, that doesn't make a home theater. A theater needs to create a suspension of disbelief, okay? It needs to create that you're really in the jungle with Arnold, or you're really in the deli restaurant watching the girl have the fake orgasm, and then watch the director's mother say, I'll have what she have.
When Harry Met Sally.
That is Rob Reiner's mom who says that.
You got to be able to like do these quick movie references when you talk to Murray, man. You got to be able to go pop, pop, pop.
Yeah. So, so yeah, I mean, if you're talking to somebody that's going to have a dedicated home theater, again, you know, people have the money, or we've had clients. I have a client that just finished a 17,000, not just 4 years ago, finished a 17,000 square foot house. That's magnificent property. And the theater is still 2x4s. The rest of the house is completely finished because he wanted to do the theater right, you know, and he didn't want to dilute it. Like, well, here's my construction budget and all that. And this year we'll finally do the theater. And I've actually had a couple of clients where I've encouraged them. I said, look, let's not throw 90 grand at this theater that you're going to throw out in here. Don't do anything. Wait until you're in a situation where you can focus on the theater, both in terms of time, energy, and finances, especially, again, you know, if you're not worth $700 million, like Ron is, for example. But
clearly.
Yeah,
clearly.
He does this. This is a hobby for Ron. I don't know if you knew this.
You're letting the cat out of the bag here, Murray. Yeah. You're letting people in on the secret.
So that's a very powerful argument. If you say to somebody, don't give me money for your own theater right now, that usually gets people to pause. Like, wait a minute, maybe he really is interested in doing the right thing for me. That should give you a lot of street cred. And it has for me. They may then immediately up their budget when they realize that, like, that I see what you're saying. Now, you need to get the job first. Don't misunderstand me. You need to at least get the house, you know, project. But in terms of the theater, that's going to be, for us, the theater is the glamour shot of what we do. You know, if we do our job right, the entire rest of the house, you shouldn't be able to see anything that we've done. You know, there shouldn't be wall acne with a bunch of controls. There shouldn't be 14, you know, remotes on the coffee table. The speakers shouldn't be sitting on stands on the floor unless, again, you get an audiophile guy. But those are the people that most AV companies don't want. You know,
do you agree, Murray, that like refers like? Because there's a concept that I think I've been baking, and maybe I probably read it and have heard it. But like a project, a customer will refer a similar type of customer.
Absolutely. It's a great point. I've had clients, no, bad word. I've had prospects come to me and go, one of two things, you know, cut me a deal, you know, I'll only pay 10% over, and then, you know, then the kicker is like, well, I can refer you to a lot of people. Right. So you're right. What I found is the client that, like, here's your $300,000. This literally happened. Here's your $300,000 proposal. I think I looked at first of all, what I think is hysterical. Mr. Smith, here's your 14-page, $400,000 proposal. They flip to the last page. We don't itemize the pricing on our bids at all, by the way, to get people away from focusing on the boxes. The budgets are on the back page. Your theater is 110,000. Your IT is 50 grand. Your house music is 80 grand. That's all the numbers there are in a 14-page proposal, right? They flip to that and they go, hey, did you put any speakers by the pool? True story. No. All right, throw in some speakers by the pool, throw it in. We got a deal. Done. Close the book, moved on, right? So, but the same client You go do a $15,000 upgrade for the sitting room, they want an itemized proposal. I've always found that very curious. I see that all the time. That, why are you charging me $499 for this VCR I can buy for $479 somewhere else? But the $300,000, I'll say this, and then I want to get back to your like meets like, and then my point there. I had never forgotten this. When I was 12 years old, Mad Magazine, which again, you have to be older to remember.
I think people need to Google that. If
Yeah,
you're under,
Mad
I don't
Magazine.
know.
Mad Magazine is a cartoon strip, and you see this business executive run into the office waving a piece of paper over his hand and said, "Who made this $2.95 phone call?" Back when phone calls were itemized. And the secretary goes, "Mr. Smith, you write checks for tens of thousands of dollars every day. Why are you upset about a $2.95 phone call?" And Mr. Smith says, "Well, frankly, I don't understand tens of thousands of dollars, but $2.95 I understand." Right? But the other thing is, if somebody says to you, talking about pitfalls, cut me this great deal, I can refer you a lot of people. I found that somebody that I don't want to say pays retail, but somebody that says, okay, just throw in a pair of speakers, his buddies are the same mindset, same approach, same how they do business. The guy who says, cut me a deal, is going to introduce you to his buddies who also say, cut me a deal, right? And discounting is the surest way to spiral down. You start discounting, I guarantee you it's better to just not do the jobs. Okay, there's a lot of books and white papers written on this, that discounting just spirals you down. Okay, so yes, so I had one client that was really obnoxious about this because they really wanted us to do the job, but they were really obnoxious about, they wanted a deal and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what? You're right. I know you're going to refer us a lot of business. You're a great guy. So I'm going to tell you what, we're going to do this job at the price that we've set. But for every person you refer us, I'm going to cut you a $30,000 check. That was the end of the conversation. And it just all of a sudden now, it's like, well, okay, I'll pay your price.
Paid your price.
It's all of a sudden it's like, put up or shut up. You call somebody out. You don't have to be as blunt as I was, but he was just coming off really annoyingly.
What made you that really jump out to me or resonated with me was the idea that you're willing to tell a customer, let's not spend the money now and let's do it right at a later date when you can afford to do it right. Well, that now is potentially a $300,000 or $400,000 job in the future that will refer $300,000 or $400,000 jobs. So think about the lifetime value of that relationship.
Right.
And do you take the $90,000 job today because you want to score the quick win?
Well,
or do you wait a year or two, score the $300,000 job, and then score 3 more from their friends, and it's $1 million? It's 10x.
Right. Well, one of our smallest home budgets was years ago, and it was like 60 grand, but it was very simple. There was no automation. It was just some background music and a den, but it was Charlize Theron. And I wound up getting kissed by her. So you know what? I'll do a 60 grand, job if Charlene gets to kiss me. But wonderful.
She gets to kiss you, or that's her payment for having to.
Right. I allowed her.
It sounds like maybe a penalty. I don't know.
I allowed her, but no, she's a fabulous woman. Now we've got a number of interesting adventures with clients, but but you're right. Like attracts like. So, and again, another word of advice is. It's okay to take on a small job as long as it's still profitable, and more importantly, whatever you do deliver is going to be of quality and will work and will deliver an experience. You don't. My budget's. I want a Lexus, but my budget's only 25 grand. You don't deliver half a car with one of the wheels missing. Okay.
Right.
You got to say, well, 25 grand, we can deliver you a very nice
Ford Festiva.
Ford Festiva. Okay.
I don't know if they still make.
I live in west side of LA. There are no American cars. I think there's a rule. It's like I joke that my mother-in-law's Rolls, if she hits Mulholland, the engine stops and it rolls back to Beverly Hills.
It rolls back to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, because it won't allow it to go into the valley. But yeah, exactly. It's like a Ford Festiva done well will be reliable. It'll work. It's great. Don't try to deliver the Lexus for the price of a Ford Festiva. It's never going to work. They're going to be unhappy. It's going to just explode in your face.
No, it's great. So great advice, Murray. I want to pick your brain here before I would let you go. We've been on a little bit over an hour. How is business now for you? How do you see? I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, and I know you serve a certain segment of the marketplace. We'll call it
Right.
that kind of, premier, state level of the marketplace. How do you see 2020 playing out? And how do you see 2021? If there's any, remember,
Right.
a lot of our audience, both live and through podcast, are your peers around the world. And they love hearing these forecasts, whether they're accurate or not.
Well,
What do you see coming?
I mean, this will pass. I mean, this is not something that is going to destroy the planet. There's no endemic weakness in the economy. Like what happened in 2008, there was a systematic issue. That things were highly leveraged, right? That doesn't exist now. The problem, of course, you're having is that you are going to see a shift in the economy. A lot of small businesses are going out of business and will stay out of businesses. They're not going to come back. You're going to see business travel change. So things will change, right? But in terms of positive or negative, yes, it might take a year, it might take 18 months, but especially America, I was at a dinner party during the bottom of the recession of 2009, and Warren Buffett was there. My dear friend Warren, I'm just kidding, but no, he was there at this dinner party, and he goes, "Never bet against America." So America came roaring back in like 3-4 years. It wasn't in the grand scheme of things. Now, look, if you're broke and you don't have food on the table, 3 years is a lifetime. I get that. Okay, I'm very blessed. My family's very blessed. There's no question of that. But we can get through this. We will get through this. I'm not saying we can. We will get through this. But people are going to have to look and adjust to the times. That things will be different. So you have to look at what your business is. How do you make a living? This whole thing. One of my favorite things that was said in the last 4 years, back to the politics, was Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about Trump trying to support the coal industry, and he says, "What is he going to do? Bring back Blockbuster?" So there's 4 times more jobs now in green energy than there are in the oil industry. So things are changing. But you know what? If you're working in a coal mine, or if your dad did and now you're 18, you need to get a job in technology, right? Things are changing, but there will be opportunities. This country has got real strong roots. Even if you don't believe with people politically, even those people are still solid people, on both sides, right? So this country's got great natural resources and it's got great people resources. So I'm not concerned about that as long as we keep our eye on the ball and get past this blip in politics. I know that we will do fine as long as it doesn't get blown up from inside, which is something that I don't think anyone could have ever imagined, 10 years ago. This was inconceivable that you would have a president of the United States trying to undermine the election, right? So just to have a full circle. But
yeah,
but I think
tie it back
but I
to
think
the
especially but in our industry, if you are dealing with major market segment, you really need to look at what you do as a service, that you happen to also install boxes. Get your mind away from the boxes, because the boxes are going to get smaller and cheaper and more unified.
Wim from Spain made a comment, Murray, about 15 minutes ago. He says, be a service company with a product offering.
Right. I mean, yeah, you got to be a service. I mean, look, TV sets now have so much built into them that you don't need $10,000 of boxes to support it anymore. So it's going to change. So you're going to have to look at your business model, how you make money, what services you offer, and how you execute them. Because it's definitely, especially if you're dealing with the vast majority of the homes in the United States, you put a TV on the wall, bingo, they now have internet, they got streaming services. You didn't need to install a rack of gear. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when we could sell $20,000 boxes that had one button on it, and required us 5 minutes to set up, and we made $6,000. Those days are going away, especially again. Like I said, we're very blessed, but that's a reality for 98% of the marketplace. because the days of being able to sell tons and tons of boxes, are going away. You're going to have to shift the money. And I think certain opportunities, you could shift the money into speakers, to something where there is a differentiation, where you can say, hey, because sometimes they'll say my budget's 15 grand without realizing they don't need 8 grand of that stuff anymore. So you can say, yeah, okay, 15 grand. Then you deliver them a $10,000 speaker. They go, wow, this sounds great, because you didn't need to spend $6,000 on support boxes,
Thomas from Panama says, thanks, Murray, for sharing your experiences. Definitely all markets around the world go through some of these issues you've mentioned. Great interview.
Yeah, Tom, the check is on the way. Just
you sent him $20 as well?
Yeah. Well, PayPal, again, PayPal, who
not Bitcoin. You're not sending Bitcoin or Litecoin. You're sending PayPal, still dollars.
No. One of my holdings is in PayPal, which obviously has done very well. Yes. So
Murray, yeah. How can folks that are listening or watching that want to get in touch with you or learn more about your business, how do you recommend they do that?
Say that again.
For anyone listening or watching that would like to learn more about Future Home or perhaps get in touch with you, what would you recommend? Do you want to give an email? Do you want to give a website?
Sure. Our website, which, by the way, nice plug to Ron. Ron has been bugging me since 1963 to redo our website, right? And I was always very resistant, because the reality is, whether he likes it or not, is that most people just go to our website, they immediately want to go to the pictures and just look, the pictures say 1,000 words. So, but I finally said, no, the presentation of the pictures, the presentation of our information is just as important as the content itself. So we are in the middle of having One Firefly redo our website and give it a more polished look, so that it will, this can actually segue right into theaters. I got into a big discussion with the homeowner. The wife wanted the walls in the theater to be off-white, right? And I was like, no. And she's like, I'll give you your opinion when you're ready for it. That's, when a billionaire's wife says that, you have to take that back. So, but you have to explain that the room is just as important as the technology in creating the entire experience. So in the same way, our website needs to have a presentation that is appropriate for us. So yes, our website is, I'll say it first, it's FHTLA, which stands for Future Home Technology Los Angeles, FHTLA.com. You can see our old site. And then a month and a half from now, look at our new site, and you can say to Ron, you made it better, you made it worse. I can't believe you charged Murray $800 to do all that work. All those things. You can also email me at info at FHTLA.com. Remember, that's Future Home Technology Los Angeles, or Future Home Theater Los Angeles, either way. And it's info at. You forgot the at symbol.
There we go. Let me add the at symbol. I'm doing this live here, guys. I'm my own producer here. So there we go.
I just,
What are you gonna do? You're slumming it here with me, Murray. So
I tell
take what you can get.
I'll be back. Eventually, we'll be going to ASEON again. We're in a networking group of 150 of the top companies. It's a buyers group where 150 top companies got together. And again, kind of what CEDIA had done, which was, how do we network the end users / installers with the manufacturers? So there's a group called ASEON that does that. It's a specific group that interacts face to face. I hate to say elite group, but a distinct group.
Richard just announced the virtual conference. It's going to be in October. It's going to be the end of.
So it allows there's about 150 members to network with manufacturers to communicate what the marketplace really needs. So I'll be in South Florida for that, and now I have a reputation. I rented that when I was there. I rented this convertible Mercedes. Which I guess I'll have to think of a different car to rent for next time. I should have made $20 for standing there at the front door of the hotel, and they bring the car around, with the top down there. So here's this convertible, coupe Mercedes, and one of the dealers standing next to me says, "I'll give you $50 if you jump in that car." Now, what I should have done was just jump in the car and drive it around and say, "Give me my $50." But I opened up my mouth. I go, "No, that's my car." Idiot. My wife goes, "How could you blow that opportunity to make $50?" So I had to give her $50 to,
The
So
ASEAN conference brings out the best in all of us.
yeah, no, it's a cool group. I really like what Richard has done in terms of getting 150 dealers of all different markets, which is really cool. It isn't just guys that do 100 houses at a year, houses at a time. It's not just guys that do 3 houses at a time. It's everybody. So you get a real, which segues to what makes America great is that we're not monolithic. Which I think is the real strength of America, because look what happened in World War II. We fought monolithic organizations, defeated them very quickly. So by fact that Americans are not monolithic, that we have such a variety of approaches and backgrounds and mindsets, that I think makes us stronger. And I know that we will be fine. It will be very tough for a lot of people for the next 12 to 18 months. It's unfortunate we're here. We can look back and throw blame and talk about how we got here and all that, but we just have
we'll
to
get through it. That's your message.
We will get
it's not
through
if,
it.
it's we will. We will
Right,
get
yeah. I mean, I've got friends that live in Vegas. I mean, Vegas was destroyed worse than any other city in the United States for a number of reasons. And now I've got friends that had to move in with their friends. They had to leave their apartments. They couldn't afford it anymore. So they're doing what they need to do to get through it. But I do know that we will come back stronger, because things have changed. If anything, it's accelerated. Eventually Zoom would have taken off, but it would have taken 5 to 10 years. Now it's happening in 5 or 10 months.
Yeah.
So
Murray,
I know we're going to be fine.
Thank you for joining me and our audience on episode 138. It was a blast having you on.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. All right, hang out for me. I'm gonna pull you off, and then you and I will wrap when I close down here.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone. All right, gang. There you had it. The one and only Murray Kunis. And actually, just before we went live, I was asking Murray what type of phone he had, because I was trying to make sure that he knew how to actually find the Automation Unplugged podcast on his phone. And he has an Android device and I have an Apple device, so it's actually different. And so be sure, if you have not already done so, that you subscribe to the podcast. So Automation Unplugged, yes, we're live and we've had a great audience here today. You also, if you're out and about, or maybe you do your morning walks like I do, and or you're tinkering in the garage, or you're out on a job site, you want to listen to these various interviews, definitely be sure to find the app. In Murray's case, we actually went and found I think it was called Google Play, which he said was soon being replaced by YouTube Play or something. But anyway, we found the podcast app on his Android device, and he was able to subscribe and subscribe to the show. And so if you haven't already done so, that would make me happy if you would do that. And that way you could listen to all your friends from the industry. And I'm going to pull that off. And on that note, folks, this is how to get in touch with me and my team. Thank you for listening. And a little bit of a longer show here than normal, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.